Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Expendable Show. I'm your host, the Expendable. I don't know what was up with the guns right there, but today, so I have a show that I want to do today, and it's basically about the takeover that is happening under the United States of America's rug that we are not dealing with. I've been noticing a lot more, and it's not real hard to put together all the pieces as to what is happening. So we're going to talk about the socialist takeover of our country. And first, I think it's due to highlight the damage that's going on at the colleges. This is a huge problem. Our universities are basically creating activists. I know this is not a majority thing. I know there's a lot of students there that are actually trying to prepare themselves for the future. However, there are a lot of activist educators there that are actively trying to get their narratives to be heard through their students, which I think is very unethical. If you're a college professor and you do this and you watch my show, I have a lot of really mean things to say to you because you're destroying these kids' future. They're out there getting arrested. They're assaulting cops. What do you think happens when you assault a cop? Maybe in your communist states where nobody gets any felonies, it doesn't matter what you do. But where I'm from, you assault a cop and it's a felony and you go to prison. So you're destroying these kids' future, all because of your own selfishness and your own narcissistic tendencies. This isn't something that you guys should be taking lightly. If you're a college kid on a university and you're falling into the trash that is being fed to you by your college professor that's telling you to be an activist, stop and think about what you're doing. I see white women on these college campuses siding with Hamas. Do you idiots understand what you're supporting as a white woman? You should do some research. You should be protesting against Hamas because the women in Palestine are not treated very well by the Hamas. Do your research. Or is this one of those things where it just seems like women in general are being, slowly like devalued over time? We can't even identify what a woman is anymore, but that's another whole other topic. But what we have is women standing up for religious ideologies that are oppressive and torturistic towards women. How stupid can you be as a college white woman to do that? Or a black woman or a Hispanic woman. But the main ones I'm seeing out there are white women. So shame on you. You look like a moron because you're standing up for the oppression of women that women in this country fought so hard to get their rights. It wasn't easy, and you're just crapping on them. So keep that in mind when you jump on these socialist bandwagons with your socialist college professors, because they're going to lead you down a dark tunnel that's going to destroy your future. As I've said on one of my last podcasts, if I had somebody from these protests show up to my job and say, I'm looking for a job, and I'm going to go, what you got this arrest? You got arrested for protesting at UCLA? Nah, man, kick rocks. Because I want people that that are going to be obedient in the workforce, that are not going to come to my job, my workplace, where I have good people that work there, are going to start trash and start trouble. So you're hurting yourself in several different ways, and you morons don't even understand that you're doing it. You think you're standing up for some noble cause. You're not. You're standing up for terrorists that torture women and torture kids, kill babies, behead people. I don't care about the holy war. That's a completely irrelevant thing in this podcast. We're just going to isolate on socialist tendencies. And even though Hamas is not a socialist ideology, they're a religious ideology of terrorism, they still act as radical socialists. So, yeah, congratulations. You support an organization that tortures people, that tortures women especially, and children. So, I'm not saying that I'm a perfect human being. I'm far from that. But I can't jump on the socialist bandwagon. I mean, I went to college too. I see how these college professors try to indoctrinate people into following their ideologies to get their rocks off on watching you. They puppeteer you, and they sit in their little castles and go, "Excellent." Don't fall for that, man. You're being weak, following weak leaders. So maybe that's something you probably shouldn't do. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say about that. Our college universities, they should be under Department of Justice investigation right now, in my opinion, because of the socialist infiltrations, because of the Hamas support infiltrations. These guys are supposed to be a terrorist group, right? Yeah, right. So when 9/11 happened, we watched everybody like a hawk. Anybody who supported ISIS or anything of that nature, our law enforcement watched them like a hawk to find out who was who. I'm not seeing the Department of Justice. Merrick Garland isn't doing shit. He's just, kids will be kids. No, kids will not be kids. They're activists supporting terrorist groups. How do we know that there are not actual Hamas terrorists in those groups orchestrating these? How do we know that? The Department of Justice won't even look at these problems because Merrick Garland's a coward. And this is hurting Biden's election. So we'd rather do immoral things than hurt Biden. Stupid. Merrick Garland's a coward. Next, our federal government, full of socialists. If you don't see that our federal government is full of socialists, then you need to get out from underneath your rock and start paying attention. Of course, we have the obvious ones. Bernie Sanders is an admitted socialist. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, admitted socialist. Rashida Tlaib, admitted socialist. Cori Bush, admitted socialist. Jamal Bowman, admitted socialist. Ilhan Omar, admitted socialist. The list goes on and on and on. There's more. And then there's the ones that live under the rock. Nancy Pelosi, super socialist. She just doesn't admit it. Chuck Schumer, super socialist. She just doesn't admit it. Even on the Republican side, I am a super anti-Dan Crenshaw person. I think Dan Crenshaw is a snake in the grass. I don't support him. I don't support nothing he says. He got called out about a year and a half ago, and then he crawled under a rock and hid, thinking that, well, I'll just stay out of the way for a while. But now now he's popping back up trying to say all these great things to the Republican base. Well, I didn't forget all the trash that he was talking. We need to really pay attention to these people, as the socialist regimes are here. They're here. They've infiltrated our government. A domestic movement that is borderline threat to democracy is, at the least, is knocking on our door. They are here. This isn't something that we need to look past or take lightly. They're admitting it out in the open. Then we'll go into let's talk about the Chinese, because we're seeing a lot of illegal Chinese come across the border right now. Every day the number grows. Generally, Chinese immigrants will do it the right way for the most part. They'll get on an airplane, they'll get their work visas, they'll come over here, and they'll stay legit. So it makes me wonder if it's that easy for someone from China to come here and get a work permit and go to work, then why are they sneaking across the border? Because the ones sneaking across the border are the shitheads, and they're here to do something. I don't trust that. I don't trust the Chinese that are sneaking across the border. We shouldn't be trusting anybody that sneaks across the border, but the Chinese especially. I don't trust that. I think it's a national security threat. I think we need to know exactly where all these people are at all the time. The Chinese are a notorious socialist group. So once again, all you socialist lovers out there, when you think about the Chinese, you think about children that are working in sweatshops, slave labor. Think about the African-American community and the slave labor they've had to go through in their lives. There's kids in China going through that right now. So every time LeBron James gets on TV and wants to talk about his Nike shoes, it pisses me off because he's advocating for slave labor. I understand Nike is a big deal. It's everybody likes Nikes, but it seems like there's some principles that we bypass because of our own greed and selfishness when our ancestors have already gone through some of these atrocities that we are now indirectly funding. So think about that. When you buy a pair of Nike shoes, what are you funding? I can't stand Nike. It's, in my opinion, they're a domestic terrorist group. They support a lot of really bad things with their money. And for two, with Joe Biden going after big corporations, why is he not putting some kind of regulations on Nike's corporate office? For one, to bring Nike to the United States and keep it here. For two, if they're gonna let them continue to do it that way, they should be getting super tariffed because of the way that the shoes are produced. If you don't believe me, go look it up. It's made with slave labor off kids' backs for pennies. For two, the Chinese hate Muslims. They almost wiped out an entire region of Muslims with the Uyghurs. I give huge props to Enes Kanter, former NBA player. He is an avid proponent of the Chinese in relation to the Uyghurs. The guy had basically threw away his NBA career to stand up for the right thing. We are still, LeBron knows all this information. He knows the NBA is owned by China. It's a big deal. Everybody knows it. $1 billion corporation. China runs the NBA. So I have a big issue. I will not, and it sucks because I'm a huge New York Knicks fan, and I will not give them 1 minute of viewership because I do not believe that I should be supporting something that is so evil to humanity. I don't like China. It's a bad country ran by really bad people. Xi Jinping is so before all you liberals that watch my show and send me death threats all the time, I'm going to say that Xi Jinping is a very, very intelligent human being. Now, don't kill me because, Trump likes to say that Putin's really smart. I just call it like I see it. So before you start being crybabies about it, Xi Jinping is a very smart human being. He is decades ahead of us in the planning of this. Yeah, there's financial struggles going on in China. They're not a flawless society, but they are trying to, and they are taking advantage of our downfalls. Every time we make a mistake, China takes advantage. And we are at that point to where there could be a standoff. China has surpassed us in a lot of things, including some military. believe their Navy's bigger than ours now. So that's an issue. They are a high-tech military juggernaut, and they have a lot of people in that country that are ready to be in the military and are military aged and are actively serving in their military. So they're not going to be a walk in the park. And then you throw in the plants that they've been planting in this country for the last few years that are all over the place. Like, how do you have your own like police station, your own Chinese police station? Like, how the hell does that happen? And they were finding them all over the place. Like, how does the Chinese have their own damn police station? But that was a beacon. It was a place where they could plan and make it look like, something that the average citizen shouldn't question. Luckily, people started questioning it. So China, I'm anti-China. I think that socialist country, it is a socialist country. So if you're Bernie Sanders or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or some stupid college kid that's fallen for their college professor's bullshit, you're supporting the murder of Muslims. Congratulations. And plus they were doing, they were castrating them and doing all these nasty things to them so they couldn't procreate. So you're all in favor of that too. But you know what, you liberals, you guys love abortion. So, it's probably right up your alley. I get it. Next, Venezuela. We should not be doing business with Venezuela. They are an authoritarian country. They claim to be a republic, but they are not. They are an authoritarian socialist / communist country ran by the next dictator in line all the time. So we have to, but we keep buying oil off of Venezuela. A lot of people don't know this. We do buy a small percentage of oil off Venezuela. Why are we supporting communist countries as the United States of America? We should be shutting that down. I don't give a shit how cheap their oil is or how good quality their oil is. We shouldn't be buying a damn gallon of oil off of Venezuela. Screw them. We should be helping bankrupt them until they get their country under control. Because now their migrants are coming up to the United States and their street gangs are coming up to the United States and they're causing problems here, especially here in Georgia. We have a Venezuelan gang problem here now. Thank you, Joe Biden. Next is Cuba. A lot of people. So Cuba is a huge dictatorship. It is a very, very, very communist country / socialist country. They have there's actually a little uprising going on in Cuba right now, but I almost said a cancellation word, but our idiot media doesn't ever want to cover it. Why do they not want to cover Cuba in our news? Because Cuba's our neighbor, and Cuban refugees have been coming over here trying to escape that dictatorship for decades. And we have virtually done nothing to help those people that are there. I just watched a video on the Dan Bongino show today where they took this girl and they just basically black bagged her and yanked her up and took her, just because she protested. That's the kind of things that happen there. And if you look at their country, the people stand in line, during their weekly go get your rations. There's plenty of videos online where you can watch how that process works in Cuba. They basically stand outside of the markets and they're allowed certain items that they can take that the government provides them. And it's very, very minimal. So those of you socialists out there, you really need to take into consideration that, if you think you're going to be part of the oligarchy 1%, think again, because guess what? You're going to be right beside me in the ration line. And the difference between me and you is I'm going to take yours. I'm not going to let you eat because you caused the problem. So just so you know, all you socialists out there are going to get constantly robbed by people like me. So like I said, there's currently a little revolution going on. There was one a couple years ago where I think Biden said, well, we're giving them the internet. That's what he gave that's what he gave Cuba, or he was going to turn off their internet, or I don't know. Basically, he shut down communications, which was stupid. he didn't handle that well. He didn't give any aid or nothing to the revolutionaries trying to fight against a dictatorship. There's basically nobody in this world that will go to Cuba and help them. Now, when you think about things, Cuba is heavily funded by China. Okay, China has bases on Cuba now. Our government has admitted it finally. So we have a China problem there as well. When the uprisings happen, China sends military to assist the Cuban government to maintain control. And if you watch plenty of uprising and protest videos from China, you'll see how they handle things. They burn entire buildings of people down. So China's very ruthless when it comes to people who go against the grain with the government. So socialism's a big thing. And, when we go through everything that's happening, it's a shame that our colleges and universities have sunk to that level. It's a shame that our federal government has allowed people like that in. And it just shows you, like when you look at those districts and precincts, where Ilhan Omar is representing, that tells you where there is a large amount of socialists that live in that region. They've been planted there years ago, and now they have congressional representation. So, that's a problem, and it was implemented a long time ago, and it's now catching up to us, and now it's front and center, and there's not a damn thing we can do about it. Next, I want to cover the European Union. What? The European Union? Are they socialist? You're absolutely damn certain they're socialist. The European Union's full of socialists. So the actual socialist countries in Europe that they call themselves democratic, they're democratic socialists. Germany, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Finland. So you basically have everything around the Scandinavian areas is democratic socialist. So they do their own system. They still participate in capitalism. However, the government pays for everything else that they need. Medical, all the things, social programs is all done by the government. There is not a whole lot of the basic necessities that the government's not providing them. Now, what that does is it allows people to incubate off of the government, which is what the governments want. They want you to lean on them because that gives them a sense of control over you. Because if you act stupid, they'll cut the programming, and then you don't have help. So it's their way of gaining control through allowing and disallowing programming. And you'd be surprised if the government food regulations get cut off one day. You'd be surprised at how stupid people will get and how obedient they'll get to the government if the government, all they got to do is turn the switch back on. There are other countries in Europe that have heavy political socialist party influences. England is one. They have the Labour Party, big influence on England. They are constantly trying to, turn the whole parliament into a giant socialist orgy. France also, they have the French Socialist Party, which is full of Napoleons. Then Germany has I think it's the Die Linke. That it's just another socialist party. So, that potentially could be the next realm of Nazis. So this is what you guys are supporting in America when you identify as a socialist. I also saw a clip where this college kid was saying I disagree with everything that you're saying. We need a one world government that runs everything. That is a horrible idea. But back in the day, it was conspiracy theory. The New World Order is conspiracy theory. But I have a surprise for you. this is an actual program that the United Nations has put together. They want one world government. They are very out in the open about it. But what happens is the American media is not allowed to report on the specifics of the United Nations dealings here because our medias, including Fox, MSNBC, CNN, Disney, everybody's pretty much owned by the big three, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. So they are the majority shareholders. They are voting members of the shares of the shareholdings. So they're going to shut that shit down. You can always tell Fox will only go so far with the blame game. They basically stop at Joe Biden, Barack Obama, and George Soros. George Soros is a nothing burger, just so you all know. He's just the guy that the shadow elites have in place to be the boogeyman. Chase George Soros all over the place while we can over here, and that's what happens. And we're all sleeping on it. We're following George Soros around. He's not even relevant. Dude's not even running the company no more. His idiot son is, which he says he's going to eliminate all the MAGA Republicans. Like to see you try. Right? He looks like he's probably a soy boy, but that's fine. Like I said, my first book got lots of threats. Podcasts, get some threats. I'm still alive. So for now, we'll see. Maybe if I knock on Europe too much, they might come over and try to have a friendly conversation with me. But we really need to pay attention to these socialist regimes. I think they're all cells, and that's at some point when somebody gets brave enough, I think all the cells are going to react. I think that we have a major problem coming, and our federal government in the present is going to let it happen, and they're not going to do anything about it because it seems like our country is lacking in the intelligence community right now because our Department of Justice, our Homeland Security Director, and our everybody else involved has no idea about nothing. FBI, CIA, hell, they didn't even know. We didn't know that January 6th was going to happen, even though we had thousands of reports that it was going to happen. But they, are intelligent. They pick and choose. And I think they're going to sit this one out. I know Tucker Carlson's talked about that he feels like something is going to happen before the election. Dan Bongino's mentioned it before. So Charlie Kirk, some of those guys are talking about those things that they think something is going to happen. I think we need to be on our toes. We need to pay attention to what's going on around us. Republican, Democrat. I think it's going to be bigger than us. And I think at some point, Americans are going to have to be Americans, regardless of political affiliation. I think we have a lot of outside influences in here that are going to cause us a lot of problems. So everybody be prepared. Desperation time. They know if Trump gets elected, which I think is probably going to happen, it's the end. It's the end of the attempt. They've got one window, and it's by December. So between now and December, the desperation is going to happen, and somebody's going to make a move. Whether it's Russia, China, South Korea, they're pretty trigger happy on. They want to kill something so bad. So we have all these. We got a lot of enemies. We've been the world police for a long time. We've been doing countries dirty for a long time. The world don't trust us, and I think they see us as weak right now, and they want to cut the head off the snake. So everybody, just be aware out there. I hope that God stays on your side and keeps you healthy and safe. I don't want to sound like we're on a doomsday prophecy or anything, but I feel like we should start being aware. Start being aware. Start seeing things. Pay attention to what's going on in the world. Pay attention to what's going on in your community. And band together as a community and do what's right. So that is our show for the day, and I will be back on Sunday. I think I got a couple of little creative things I'm thinking about doing for Sunday's show. Make sure you guys comment, like, subscribe, all that good jazz. I think that's the first time I've ever said that, but that's how we keep the shows going with the interactions that you guys give. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. So now I will never charge you guys for my show. It's free. But like and subscribe, comment. I'll jump in the comments and answer stuff. So I do appreciate the people that do like my show. So everybody be safe out there. It's Mother's Day this weekend, so do something good for your mom. Kids, do something good for your mom. And everybody take care out there. I'm out of here. Peace.